Nobody pays attention to Staff Sergeant Maya Chun. Just an ordinary security guard checking ID cards at Camp Pendleton Gate until General Rodriguez watches her catch a 0.03-second micro-expression on a passing Marine's face. That level of behavioral analysis is only taught at Marine Intelligence's most classified unit, and nobody from that unit survived their last mission. Camp Pendleton, California. Gate 5 Security Checkpoint 0, 600 hours daily. 30-year-old Staff Sergeant Maya Chun has been checking military identification cards for 18 months. Same routine, same post, same invisibility. To everyone passing through, she's furniture, the ID girl, someone who glances at plastic cards and waves people through. Nothing more significant than a turnstile or a speed bump. Next, Maya says quietly, extending her hand for the approaching Marine's identification. Lance Corporal Martinez, 22 years old, hands over his card with routine boredom. But Maya sees more than a card. Her eyes track his facial muscles, pupil dilation, micro movements around his eyes. Left eyebrow raises 2 millimeters for 0.6 seconds. Lip compression lasting 0.1 seconds. Nostril flare barely detectable. Deception indicators, stress markers, concealment patterns. Thank you, she says, returning his ID. Normal voice, normal procedure. But her mental file on Lance Corporal Martinez now contains detailed behavioral baseline, stress triggers, and deception probability assessment. Martinez walks through completely unaware that he's just been psychologically profiled by someone with capabilities he couldn't imagine. Sergeant Mills approaches her checkpoint booth. Chun, you've been staring at people weird again. Just check the cards and move them along. Maya nods silently. She can't explain that she's not staring weird. She's conducting micro-expression analysis, reading facial action units, detecting emotional leakage, and building psychological threat assessments. What Camp Pendleton doesn't know is that Staff Sergeant Maya Chun possesses training that officially doesn't exist. Skills developed in programs that have no public documentation. Expertise that was supposed to die with her 4 years ago. The morning progresses with typical gate traffic. Personnel reporting for duty, visitors checking in, contractors arriving for work. To casual observers, Maya performs routine security screening, but she's actually constructing detailed behavioral profiles on every person who passes her checkpoint. Threat level assessments, psychological stability indicators, deception probability ratings. Lieutenant Torres stops by her post. Everything normal this morning, Sergeant. Yes, sir, Maya responds. She doesn't mention that she's identified 3 personnel showing signs of financial stress, 2 displaying indicators of romantic relationship problems, and 1 exhibiting classic markers of substance abuse. Information that could be crucial for base security, but explaining how she knows would compromise everything. Tuesday morning brings an unscheduled base inspection. Brigadier General Rebecca Rodriguez, 1 star gleaming on her collar, approaches Gate 5 for a security assessment. General Rodriguez positions herself where she can observe checkpoint operations. 25 years of Marine intelligence experience have taught her to notice details others miss. Maya continues her routine, unaware of the scrutiny. A convoy of civilian contractors approaches for entry processing. Standard procedure requires individual ID verification and vehicle inspection. The first contractor hands Maya his identification. Middle-aged man, nervous demeanor, avoiding eye contact. Maya accepts the card, but her focus shifts to his facial expressions. Then it happens. As Maya examines the ID, the contractor's face betrays something. A micro-expression lasting exactly 0.03 seconds. Barely perceptible tightening around his eyes. Involuntary mouth movement suggesting concealed anxiety. Maya's response is immediate and professional. She steps back slightly, positioning herself with better tactical advantage. Her hand moves subtly toward her radio, though she doesn't transmit. General Rodriguez watches this interaction with growing fascination. That wasn't random caution. That was trained behavioral assessment, advanced threat detection, based on microfacial analysis. Could you step out of your vehicle, sir? Maya requests politely. The contractor complies, but General Rodriguez notices how Maya positions herself during this interaction, maintaining sight lines, controlling space, reading body language with professional expertise. Is there a problem? The contractor asks. Standard inspection, sir, Maya replies, but her eyes continue tracking every micro-expression, every involuntary gesture, every sign of deception or anxiety. General Rodriguez recognizes what she's witnessing. This isn't standard gate security. This is marine intelligence level behavioral analysis. Micro-expression detection techniques taught only in the most classified training programs. The contractor passes inspection, but General Rodriguez has seen enough. She approaches Maya's checkpoint. Sergeant Chun, the general says quietly. Maya snaps to attention, recognizing the rank immediately. Yes, ma'am. That assessment technique you just used, where did you learn it? The question hangs between them like a classified document waiting to be opened. Secure briefing room. Classification level restricted. General Rodriguez activates the white noise generator and locks the door. Facial action unit analysis, she says directly. Micro-expression detection, behavioral threat assessment, based on involuntary facial movements. Maya maintains military bearing, but her analytical mind races. 18 months of operational security suddenly at risk. Ma'am, I don't understand, she responds carefully. General Rodriguez opens a classified folder. According to your record, you're a basic security specialist. No advanced training, no behavioral analysis background. She pauses, studying Maya's reaction with her own trained eyes. But I just watched you conduct marine intelligence level psychological assessment on a civilian contractor. That training doesn't exist in standard military curriculum. The silence stretches. 18 months of perfect cover balanced against recognition by someone who clearly understands the implications. 4 years ago, General Rodriguez continues, Marine intelligence deployed a deep cover team for counterterrorism infiltration. Mission designation Operation Shadow Screen. 7 specialists, all declared killed in action when the operation was compromised. Maya's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, but someone survived. Someone with advanced micro-expression training has been conducting covert threat assessment at Camp Pendleton for 18 months. Finally, Maya speaks. The same terrorist network that killed my team is still recruiting, ma'am. Same psychological manipulation techniques, same radicalization patterns, same recruitment protocols targeting military personnel. Her voice carries the weight of 4 years of hidden knowledge. I've been monitoring base personnel for behavioral indicators of radicalization, foreign influence, or terrorist recruitment, building profiles on potential insider threats. General Rodriguez processes this revelation. You've been conducting unauthorized psychological operations. I've been protecting American Marines, Maya corrects. My team died because we couldn't identify the behavioral markers of infiltration. I won't let that happen again. General Rodriguez examines the intelligence files before her. What have you discovered? 3 personnel showing classic signs of financial manipulation by foreign agents. 2 displaying behavioral patterns consistent with ideological radicalization. 1 contractor with deception markers suggesting false identity. Maya sets her full professional bearing now visible. Ma'am, request permission to brief you on 4 years of collected intelligence. Permission granted. But first, I need to know how many of your team actually survived. Just me, ma'am. But the mission continues until completed. General Rodriguez nods slowly. Intelligence Specialist Chun, you're officially recalled to active status. We're going to finish this operation properly. About time, ma'am. These threats won't wait for bureaucracy. As they prepare to leave the briefing room, General Rodriguez pauses. That micro-expression analysis. You've refined the technique significantly since Marine intelligence training. 4 years of field application, ma'am. You develop precision when lives depend on reading people correctly. That evening, Camp Pendleton security logs show an unusual entry. Threat assessment protocols enhanced. Classification restricted. Authorization Brigadier General Rebecca Rodriguez. Sometimes the most important work is done by people nobody notices. Sometimes the most crucial intelligence comes from those presumed lost. And sometimes when national security demands it, go step back into the light to finish protecting those who never knew they needed protection. For Staff Sergeant Maya Chun, the time for hiding is over. The gate will be secured. The threats will be neutralized. And the mission will be completed because some guardians never stop watching. Over the following weeks, word of Maya's marine intelligence background spread throughout Camp Pendleton. But rather than treating her like a celebrity or an oddity, her colleagues began to understand why she had always been so exceptional at her job. Lieutenant Torres approached Maya during a quiet moment on the night shift 2 weeks after the incident. "Maya, I've been thinking about what you said that night about wanting to save lives in a place where Marines go to get better, not where they go to die." Maya looked up from the chart she was reviewing. "Yeah, I realize that's exactly what you've been doing here for 18 months, but you've been doing it with skills that most of us could never imagine having." Maya smiled slightly. "Torres, every Marine in this unit has skills that save lives. Mine are just differently acquired. But that's what I mean," Lieutenant Torres continued. "When I think back on all the times I've watched you handle security emergencies, you were always the calmest person in the room. Now I understand why. Combat intelligence teaches you to focus under pressure," Maya acknowledged. "When someone's life is on the line, panic is a luxury you can't afford." Torres nodded. "I have a confession to make. After that night with the contractor incident, I looked up some information about marine intelligence behavioral specialists. Do you know what I found?" Maya shook her head. "I found out that marine intelligence behavioral specialists have one of the highest threat detection rates of any counterintelligence personnel. They're trained to identify security risks in conditions that would be impossible for standard security screening." "We had good training," Maya said modestly. "Maya, you had more than good training. You had experience that taught you how to make life and death decisions under extreme pressure, and you've been using that experience here every single day to protect Marines." Maya was quiet for a moment. "Torres, can I tell you something?" "Of course." "That night, when the contractor showed deception markers, I wasn't thinking about my shadow screen training or my intelligence experience. I was thinking about Corporal Martinez processing through Gate 5 and Lance Corporal Williams, who needed his clearance renewed, and all the other Marines on this base who deserve to be safe." Torres smiled. "That's exactly what I mean. You used your extraordinary skills for the most ordinary reason, because you care about your fellow Marines." The conversation was interrupted by Base Administrator Walsh, who approached with a serious expression. "Chun, I need to speak with you about something important." Maya straightened, wondering if there were still administrative consequences from the contractor incident. "I've been in discussions with our base command about what happened 2 weeks ago. We're implementing some new security protocols and enhanced emergency response training for our personnel." Maya nodded. "That sounds reasonable. We'd like you to help develop and lead the training program." Maya was surprised. "Sir, I'm not sure that's appropriate. I'm a security specialist, not a training consultant." "Maya, you're a security specialist with experience that could help our personnel respond to threat situations more effectively. Not just violent situations, but any high-stress security emergency where quick thinking and calm decision-making could save lives." Torres spoke up. "Maya, you've been teaching us without even realizing it. Every time you've handled a security incident or a threat assessment, you've demonstrated skills that we could all learn from." Maya considered this. "What kind of training are you talking about?" "Situational awareness, threat assessment techniques, emergency response protocols. Not turning our Marines into intelligence operatives, but helping them develop the kind of calm competence you've always shown." Maya thought about her intelligence experience and her 18 months at Camp Pendleton. "I could do that, but only if it's understood that the goal is better base security, not turning the gate into an intelligence operation." "Absolutely," Walsh agreed. "Chun, your service to your country was honorable, and your service to this base has been exemplary. We'd like to find a way to honor both." As Walsh left, Lieutenant Torres turned to Maya with a smile. "So, Staff Sergeant Chun, ready to teach us some of those skills?" Maya laughed, the first time Torres had ever heard her truly laugh during a shift. "Torres, how about we start with something simple? Next time we have a security incident, I'll show you how to maintain calm focus while everything around you is chaos." "Deal." "But Maya, thank you for keeping our Marines safe, for being the kind of security specialist who would step between a threat and our personnel, and for showing us what real strength looks like." Maya looked down the corridor at the quiet gate checkpoint, the place where she had found purpose after losing her team, mission after trauma, and a way to use her hardest-earned skills for the most important objective of all, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. "Torres, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be." The quiet gate guard had been a warrior all along, but more importantly, she had become something even more powerful. A protector who would fight to safeguard those in her care, using every skill she had learned in service to her country to serve the most vulnerable personnel on her base. Sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who never stopped serving, even after they thought their fighting days were over. Maya's transformation from covert operative to official security liaison wasn't just professional advancement. It represented the completion of a mission that had begun 4 years earlier when Operation Shadowscreen was compromised. The terrorist network that had eliminated her team continued to operate, but now their recruitment efforts would face systematic opposition. Maya's behavioral analysis capabilities, refined through years of field application, would be deployed with proper authorization and support. The gate checkpoint became more than an entry point. It became an intelligence collection node where every interaction generated actionable threat assessment data. Within weeks of her official reactivation, Maya had identified 17 personnel requiring additional security screening. 3 showed classic financial manipulation indicators suggesting foreign influence operations. 2 displayed ideological radicalization markers consistent with extremist recruitment. 1 contractor's identity verification revealed discrepancies requiring federal investigation. Her methodical approach to threat detection had prevented multiple potential security breaches. The training program Maya developed became mandatory for all Camp Pendleton security personnel. Her curriculum covered situational awareness, micro-expression recognition, behavioral baseline establishment, and threat escalation protocols. Marines who had once dismissed psychological profiling as abstract theory now understood its practical applications through Maya's instruction. General Rodriguez visited the training sessions regularly, observing how Maya translated complex intelligence techniques into accessible security procedures. The specialist who had operated in isolation for 18 months was now building a network of trained observers throughout the base. Every guard post became an extension of her analytical capabilities. Maya's official reinstatement brought resources she hadn't accessed in 4 years. Classified databases, behavioral analysis software, direct communication channels with federal counterintelligence agencies. The isolated operative working from memory and instinct now had institutional support for her mission. Her small office, converted from supply closet, contained secure communications equipment and threat assessment workstations. The psychological profiles she had maintained mentally for 18 months were transferred to encrypted databases. Each base personnel file now included behavioral indicators, stress patterns, and security risk assessments. What had been intuitive threat detection became systematic intelligence collection with proper documentation and legal oversight. Lieutenant Colonel James Martinez, Camp Pendleton's intelligence officer, reviewed Maya's compiled assessments with professional amazement. "Chun, these profiles are more detailed than federal background investigations. You've documented behavioral patterns that standard security screening never identifies. For years of continuous observation, tends to be thorough, sir." Maya replied matter-of-factly. Martinez studied the threat matrix Maya had developed. Color-coded risk levels, intervention protocols, and escalation procedures created a comprehensive security framework. "This isn't just threat detection," he observed. "This is predictive analysis. You're identifying problems before they become incidents. That was always the goal, sir. Prevention rather than reaction." The contractor with false identity markers became Maya's first official success. Federal investigation revealed he was operating under stolen credentials while conducting industrial espionage for foreign competitors. His arrest prevented theft of classified military technology designs. Maya's micro-expression analysis had detected deception that traditional security screening had missed completely. Base security briefings now included Maya's threat assessments as standard intelligence products. Her behavioral analysis reports carried the same classification and distribution as signals intelligence and human intelligence summaries. The Gate Guard had become an intelligence asset producing actionable security information at the strategic level. General Rodriguez presented Maya's case study at the quarterly Marine Intelligence Conference. Her presentation, titled Behavioral Analysis in Force Protection, demonstrated how psychological profiling could enhance base security without compromising operational effectiveness. The techniques Maya had developed through necessity were being adopted throughout Marine installations globally. But Maya's greatest satisfaction came from daily operations. Young Marines approached her checkpoint with respect rather than casual indifference. They understood that her scrutiny wasn't bureaucratic harassment, but professional protection. The invisible security specialist had become a visible guardian whose expertise was finally recognized and valued appropriately. The terrorist network that had killed her team remained active, but their recruitment operations now faced systematic opposition. Maya's behavioral analysis network had created an intelligence collection capability that extended far beyond Gate 5. Every security checkpoint, every personnel interaction, every routine procedure had become part of a comprehensive threat detection system designed to identify and neutralize insider threats before they could compromise base security. Maya's expanded role brought new challenges that tested her analytical capabilities beyond routine gate operations. Federal counterintelligence agencies began consulting her expertise for complex cases involving military personnel. Her behavioral analysis techniques proved applicable to investigations spanning multiple installations and service branches. The first multi-base case involved suspected coordination between compromised personnel at 3 different Marine facilities. Maya's psychological profiling methods identified communication patterns and behavioral synchronization that traditional surveillance had missed. Her assessment revealed a sophisticated influence network using psychological manipulation rather than direct recruitment. Special Agent Sarah Kim from the Naval Criminal Investigative Service worked closely with Maya on the investigation. Chun, your behavioral analysis is identifying connections we couldn't establish through conventional methods. You're seeing psychological influence operations that our standard counterintelligence techniques miss completely. Pattern recognition becomes more refined with experience, Maya responded. For years of continuous observation teaches you what to look for. The investigation culminated in coordinated arrests across all 3 installations. Maya's behavioral assessments provided crucial evidence for prosecution, demonstrating how psychological manipulation had compromised military personnel without their conscious awareness. Her testimony before federal prosecutors established new legal precedents for behavioral evidence in national security cases. Base Administrator Walsh officially redesignated Maya's position from security specialist to counterintelligence analyst. Her new responsibilities included threat assessment briefings for base command, security protocol development, and training coordination with federal agencies. The supply closet office was replaced with a proper intelligence workspace within the Base Operations Center. Maya's success attracted attention from Marine Corps headquarters. Colonel Rebecca Torres, promoted and transferred to Intelligence Division, requested Maya's consultation on service-wide security improvements. The behavioral analysis techniques developed at Camp Pendleton were being evaluated for implementation throughout Marine installations globally. But Maya insisted on maintaining her gate checkpoint duties alongside expanded responsibilities. The daily personnel interactions provided continuous intelligence collection opportunities that desk analysis couldn't replicate. Her position at Gate 5 remained the foundation of her threat detection capabilities, even as her influence extended far beyond base perimeter security. Lieutenant Martinez, now serving as Maya's liaison officer, observed her unique approach to intelligence work. Chun, most analysts work from reports and databases. You work from direct observation and human interaction. It's a completely different methodology that produces intelligence other systems can't generate. Every person tells a story through their behavior, Maya explained. My job is learning to read those stories before they become security threats. The terrorist network that had eliminated Operation Shadow Screen discovered their recruitment operations were being systematically disrupted. Maya's behavioral analysis network had created an intelligence capability specifically designed to counter their psychological manipulation techniques. The surviving operative had not only continued her mission, but had evolved it into something far more comprehensive and effective than the original program. Maya's reputation within Marine intelligence circles continued growing as her behavioral analysis methods proved effective against increasingly sophisticated threats. Her case files documented successful identification of foreign intelligence operatives, ideological extremists, and compromised personnel across multiple installations. The techniques she had developed through necessity were becoming doctrine for counterintelligence operations. General Rodriguez received regular briefings on Maya's expanding influence throughout Marine security operations. Her psychological profiling methods were being taught at intelligence schools, incorporated into security protocols, and adopted by federal agencies dealing with insider threats. The gate guard who had operated in isolation for 18 months was now shaping national security policy at the institutional level. Maya's training program expanded beyond Camp Pendleton to include personnel from other service branches and federal agencies. Her classroom sessions combined theoretical instruction with practical exercises based on real-world threat scenarios. Students learned to recognize micro-expressions, establish behavioral baselines, and conduct psychological assessments using techniques refined through years of operational experience. The curriculum Maya developed emphasized practical application over academic theory. Her instruction focused on actionable intelligence rather than abstract behavioral psychology. Students practiced threat identification using video analysis, role-playing exercises, and supervised observation of actual personnel interactions. The program produced graduates capable of implementing behavioral analysis at their assigned installations immediately. Special Agent Kim became a regular collaborator on complex counterintelligence cases requiring Maya's expertise. Their partnership demonstrated how behavioral analysis could enhance traditional investigative methods without replacing established procedures. Maya's psychological assessments provided investigative leads that conventional surveillance and database analysis couldn't generate independently. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez documented the statistical impact of Maya's methods on base security metrics. Insider threat incidents decreased by 73% following implementation of her behavioral analysis protocols. Security breaches involving compromised personnel were identified and prevented before causing operational damage. The quantitative results supported continued expansion of Maya's program throughout Marine installations. Maya's personal satisfaction remained focused on direct protection of Marines under her care. Despite expanding responsibilities and growing recognition, she maintained her commitment to Gate 5 operations and daily personnel interactions. Her office might have moved to the operations center, but her heart remained at the checkpoint where she had first applied her skills to protect fellow service members. The terrorist network that had targeted Operation Shadow Screen found their recruitment operations increasingly ineffective against military personnel. Maya's behavioral analysis network had created systemic resistance to psychological manipulation techniques that had previously succeeded in compromising service members. Her survival and continued mission had evolved into something far more threatening to enemy operations than the original classified program. Federal counterintelligence agencies began requesting Maya's consultation on civilian cases involving national security implications. Her expertise in detecting deception and psychological manipulation proved valuable beyond military contexts. The skills developed for base security were applicable to broader national security challenges involving foreign influence operations and domestic extremism. Maya's expanded federal consultation work brought her into direct contact with the highest levels of national security apparatus. Her behavioral analysis reports reached intelligence agencies, homeland security departments, and congressional oversight committees. The techniques she had developed for base security were being evaluated for implementation across all military installations and federal facilities. The Director of Naval Intelligence personally reviewed Maya's methodologies during a classified briefing at the Pentagon. Her presentation demonstrated how micro-expression analysis could identify security threats that traditional screening procedures routinely missed. The statistical evidence supported immediate expansion of behavioral analysis training throughout military intelligence operations. Maya's case studies became required reading at federal law enforcement academies and intelligence training centers. Her documentation of successful threat identification provided practical examples of how psychological profiling could enhance existing security protocols without disrupting operational efficiency. Students studied her methods as examples of innovative intelligence collection techniques. Colonel Torres, now serving as Deputy Director of Marine Intelligence, coordinated Maya's integration into service-wide security planning. Her behavioral analysis protocols were being incorporated into standard operating procedures for all Marine installations worldwide. The psychological profiling techniques developed at Camp Pendleton were becoming institutional doctrine for counterintelligence operations. Special Agent Kim received promotion to Supervisory Special Agent based partially on her successful collaboration with Maya on complex counterintelligence cases. Their partnership had demonstrated how behavioral analysis could enhance federal investigations involving national security implications. Kim continued consulting Maya's expertise for cases requiring psychological assessment capabilities. Maya's influence extended beyond military contexts as civilian law enforcement agencies requested training in her behavioral analysis techniques. Police departments, airport security, and border protection services sought instruction in micro-expression detection and threat assessment methodologies. Her expertise proved applicable to domestic security challenges involving terrorism prevention and criminal investigation. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez documented the comprehensive impact of Maya's program on Marine Corps security metrics. Insider threat prevention improved across all installations, implementing her behavioral analysis protocols. Security incidents involving compromised personnel decreased significantly following adoption of her psychological profiling techniques. The quantitative results justified continued expansion and resource allocation for her program. The terrorist network that had eliminated Operation Shadow Screen discovered their psychological manipulation techniques were being systematically countered by Maya's behavioral analysis capabilities. Their recruitment success rates declined dramatically as military personnel became trained to recognize and resist influence operations. The surviving operative had created defensive measures far more effective than the original offensive program. Maya maintained her personal commitment to Gate 5 operations despite federal-level responsibilities and expanding influence. Her daily interactions with Marines provided continuous refinement opportunities for behavioral analysis techniques. The checkpoint remained her laboratory for developing and testing new threat identification methods before implementing them at institutional levels. General Rodriguez observed that Maya's greatest strength was her ability to translate complex intelligence concepts into practical security procedures that ordinary personnel could implement effectively. Her training programs produced graduates capable of conducting behavioral analysis without extensive psychological education or specialized equipment. Maya's transformation from covert operative to recognized intelligence asset reached completion when the Secretary of Defense personally commended her contributions to national security. Her behavioral analysis program received formal designation as a critical counterintelligence capability requiring protection and expansion. The techniques developed through necessity had become essential tools for defending against sophisticated influence operations. The Congressional Intelligence Committee reviewed Maya's methodologies during classified hearings examining insider threat prevention. Her testimony provided lawmakers with practical understanding of how psychological manipulation compromised national security personnel. The evidence supported increased funding for behavioral analysis training across all federal agencies handling classified information. Maya's training center at Camp Pendleton became the primary facility for developing behavioral analysis specialists throughout the intelligence community. Her curriculum was adopted as standard instruction for counterintelligence personnel, security specialists, and federal investigators requiring psychological assessment capabilities. Students from military intelligence, federal law enforcement, and civilian agencies received certification in her methodologies. Colonel Torres coordinated Maya's involvement in joint operations with allied intelligence services. Her behavioral analysis techniques proved effective against international influence networks operating across multiple countries. Foreign partners requested training in her psychological profiling methods to enhance their own counterintelligence capabilities against similar threats. Special Agent Kim established a federal task force specifically designed to implement Maya's behavioral analysis methods in civilian contexts. The Joint Military-Civilian Program addressed national security threats that crossed jurisdictional boundaries. Maya's expertise bridged the gap between military counterintelligence and federal law enforcement operations. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez received assignment as Maya's permanent liaison officer, coordinating her expanding responsibilities across military and civilian agencies. His role involved managing her consultation requests, training schedules, and operational commitments while ensuring her continued effectiveness at Gate 5. The administrative support allowed Maya to focus on intelligence analysis rather than bureaucratic coordination. Maya's personal satisfaction remained centered on direct protection of individual Marines rather than institutional recognition or career advancement. Her commitment to Gate 5 operations provided grounding that kept her connected to the fundamental mission of protecting those who served. The checkpoint remained her anchor despite expanding influence and growing responsibilities. The terrorist network that had targeted Operation Shadowscreen found their influence operations increasingly compromised by Maya's behavioral analysis capabilities. Military personnel trained in her techniques demonstrated systematic resistance to psychological manipulation attempts. The network's recruitment effectiveness declined to levels that threatened their operational viability. General Rodriguez observed that Maya's greatest achievement was creating sustainable defensive measures against psychological influence operations. Her training program produced multiplicative effects as graduates implemented behavioral analysis at their assigned installations. The single surviving operative had generated protective capabilities far exceeding the original classified program scope. Maya's legacy extended beyond individual threat identification to systemic enhancement of military security culture. Her emphasis on behavioral awareness created organizational resistance to influence operations at every level. The invisible threats that had once compromised military personnel now faced systematic detection and prevention measures. Maya's mission reached full completion when the last members of the terrorist network that had eliminated Operation Shadowscreen were identified and neutralized through her behavioral analysis methods. The psychological influence operation that had compromised military personnel for years was systematically dismantled using the same techniques they had used against her fallen teammates. The final operation involved coordinated arrests across multiple installations and federal agencies. Maya's behavioral assessments provided crucial intelligence that enabled successful prosecution of foreign agents and their compromised assets. The network that had seemed invincible 4 years earlier was destroyed by the surviving operative they had failed to eliminate. Camp Pendleton's Gate 5 became a permanent training facility where new generations of security specialists learned Maya's behavioral analysis techniques. Her methods were institutionalized as standard procedures for military installations worldwide. The checkpoint, where she had hidden in plain sight, now served as the foundation for global counterintelligence operations. Maya's official designation changed from staff sergeant to senior intelligence analyst, reflecting her unique expertise and institutional importance. Her authority extended across military branches and federal agencies requiring behavioral analysis capabilities. The Gate Guard had become one of the most influential counterintelligence specialists in national security operations. General Rodriguez presented Maya with the Distinguished Intelligence Medal during a ceremony attended by senior officials from across the intelligence community. Her contributions to national security were formally recognized at the highest levels of government. The commendation cited her innovative methods, operational success, and training program impact on military security. Special Agent Kim continued collaborating with Maya on complex cases requiring psychological assessment expertise. Their partnership had evolved into a permanent joint task force addressing influence operations targeting military and civilian personnel. Maya's behavioral analysis capabilities remained essential for identifying sophisticated psychological manipulation attempts. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez maintained his role as Maya's liaison officer, coordinating her expanding responsibilities while ensuring continued effectiveness of her core mission. His support allowed Maya to balance institutional demands with personal commitment to direct personnel protection. The administrative framework preserved her operational focus. Maya insisted on maintaining regular duty shifts at Gate 5, despite her elevated status and expanded responsibilities. The daily interactions with Marines provided continuous opportunities to refine behavioral analysis techniques and identify emerging threats. Her commitment to checkpoint operations remained the foundation of her professional identity. The legacy of Operation Shadow Screen was finally completed through Maya's transformation from covert operative to recognized intelligence asset. Her survival had enabled mission continuation that exceeded original program objectives. The classified operation had evolved into systematic defensive capabilities, protecting military personnel from psychological influence operations. Sometimes the most important victories are achieved by those who refuse to accept defeat. Sometimes the greatest protection comes from guardians who never stop watching. For Staff Sergeant Maya Chun, the mission that began in shadows had concluded in the light, ensuring that no terrorist network would again compromise those who served.